Who are the world's most interesting people? And what fascinating, groundbreaking, incredible things can they teach us? In this new series, I leave our Science of People lab to interview my favorite authors, experts, and celebrities for them to share their best people hacks, social skills, and stories. And let me tell you, they have some juicy tips. This is a new series I'm calling The World's Most Interesting People. Hello, hello. Today we are here with the amazing Lewis Howes. Now, this is my World's Most Interesting People series, and Lewis is a New York Times bestselling author. He's an entrepreneur. He's also a former pro arena football player. I am so thrilled to have you today, Lewis.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I just got to dive into, I think, your secret world in your new book, The Mask of Masculinity. And I want to actually kick off with that. You have this massive discovery in this book about discovering this idea of us wearing masks. Can you take me back to that moment of discovery and kind of what was going through your mind at that point?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, I realized that my life wasn't working to the fullest extent. It was working on the outside. I was achieving everything I wanted, every dream I had, financially, my health, my relationships, achievements. I was achieving what looks like it was a good life. On the inside, I never had the fulfillment that I was searching for. And I didn't know why until about 4 years ago. A number of events happened that made me question things. I got in a really bad fight, a physical fight where I actually hit someone and put him in a hospital. I was going through a traumatic emotional relationship that wasn't working. It was a lot of up and down. And I just things just stopped working for me, and I wasn't sure why. And emotionally inside, I was suffering. So I wanted to learn how I could end this suffering and really what was working in my life and what wasn't working. And I realized that this false sense of masculinity, the things I thought I was supposed to be and act like, helped me get results. It helped me achieve my dreams, but it left me feeling very empty inside. So I wanted to learn what this was, the science behind it, the research behind why, and how I could eliminate this from my life and move into a better way of being.
So we are constantly talking about these sort of hidden forces that drive our behavior. And that's exactly what you're talking about, is that
Yes.
everything looked good on the outside, as it often does with people, with businesses, but yet there was all these things behind the scenes that were driving you. Do you feel that when you're talking to people, there are always these sort of masks that you're just trying to figure out? Like when you meet someone, are you trying to figure out what mask they're wearing?
Yeah, I think I'm always trying to be intuitive to what's beneath anyone and what they're saying, how they're acting, anything.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, man, they're just a really authentic person. They're being themselves. There is no mask.
Yeah.
And I think that's the greatest place to be, when you can just be authentically you. And that typically has a lot of humility, has a lot of graciousness, has a lot of, I don't have all the answers.
Right.
But when someone comes from a place of, I know everything, it's focused on money, it's focused on these external things a lot, then you're like, okay, well, why? Not that it's right or wrong, good or bad, but just why? I'm curious. And a lot of times when that's the main focus of someone's life, is these external things, these external masks that they project, it's usually where they wrap their self-worth in. If they're striving to make a lot of money and show the world how much they make, it's usually because their self-worth is wrapped up in this. If they're a guy who's trying to always conquer the next woman and never get an intimate relationship, but like have every woman desire him, it's usually his self-worth is wrapped up in the conqueror, right? Same thing with the athlete. I was an athlete. The athlete mask is, for me, my identity was wrapped around winning, was wrapped around being a great athlete.
Right.
And so when I would lose, I was the worst loser in the world. It was like depression for days. I was angry, resentful, because I didn't feel like I was good enough, because my self-worth was wrapped around winning. So I would get mad at my teammates, get mad at the refs, the coach, whatever. I would put the blame everywhere else because I was so hurt. And then I would be driven to be the best athlete I could be so that I could never lose and feel that sense of my identity was being tacked again. And so these things, these masks that men wear.
Yeah, can I list them out? Because
Sure.
I was amazed at how you were able to take a very big idea and focus it into these main masks. And I agree with you. I think that these are the main ones. So the stoic mask, the athlete mask, the material mask, the sexual mask, the aggressive mask, the Joker mask, the invincible mask, and the know-it-all mask, and the alpha mask. So you have 9
Yep.
different masks.
That's it.
Which one, this is what I was dying to ask you, which one is most common? Like, do you think that you see most often?
I think it depends. It depends. I see a lot of material and stoic mask a lot, and alpha mask. And I think it kind of depends where you're at in the world. But in the Instagram world, it's a lot of materialism. You see a lot of the younger 20-year-old something guys, again, in general, who are constantly posting in front of Lamborghinis or posting their Rolexes that they don't own or whatever it is.
Right.
Wads of cash that someone handed to them that they don't actually have. Or they're constantly chasing that thing because they believe that it's going to make them feel something. They're going to feel fulfilled. They're going to feel worthy. They're going to feel like they've made it, like they're more manly because they tie their self-worth around their net worth. And there's a lot of, masks of aggressiveness right now. You see with our political leader who tends to lead with a lot of aggressiveness.
Yeah.
And it's his way or the highway. And it's, I'm right, you're wrong. And it's just an energy. And you see this with a lot of athletes sometimes when they're done playing sports. They don't know how to turn off that aggressiveness.
Right.
They've been trained and conditioned to be a killing machine. Also, our warriors, people in the army and the armed forces, you're trained to be a certain way. It's hard to just turn it off when that's your conditioning for so long. So I'm not trying to say that men have it worse off or there's, men have these worse challenges than women or other human beings. I'm just saying these are the challenges that men face. I would also say that there's this false sense of an alpha mask a lot.
Talk to me about the alpha mask a little bit, because you know that I love alphas. I'm fascinated with studying alphas. So tell us a little bit more about that one.
Well, here's the thing. It's like a false sense of alpha where, there's some of these guys, and I was just as... I wore the alpha mask a lot because whenever someone stepped to me, whatever, or attacked me or said something to me, it was,
and you mean like verbally, like online or
whatever, in person, like if you went to a club and someone like looked at me the wrong way, it was like, what are you looking at? Let me peacock you. Let me be the alpha male here and show you that I'm more dominant. So it's kind of the aggressive mask and the alpha mask combined. And I think a lot of men get in serious trouble because of they're wearing this false sense of alpha mask where they're focused on like never backing down in a fight, never, always making sure that if someone looks at you a certain way that you show them who's the boss or whatever. And this is what happens with so many guys. They get in a fight and then they're in jail, or they get in a fight and then they get stabbed or whatever. It's like, my definition of the ultimate alpha is really like when you see a silverback gorilla in the jungle.
Yeah.
The biggest, most dominant creature in the jungle, right? So strong, could literally destroy everyone at any moment. But he is so poised and confident in himself and graceful that he like literally walks like he's dancing through the jungle.
Yeah.
And when he sees like other apes like fighting or screaming or something happening, instead of him having to beat his chest every time, he literally just walks with his energy and just kind of like moves people to the side. Like, no, let's assess the situation.
Yeah.
So mindful of his surroundings that he can, with his energy, just see like, this isn't working right now. So let's just move things to the side. Let's talk it out. Like you can see this like director of energy as opposed to needing to just destroy everyone.
Right. I think also people are very drawn to that kind of energy.
Absolutely.
So I believe fundamentally that our emotions are contagious. And so if you have a chaotic environment, that could be a boardroom, that could be a nightclub, that could be a networking event, and you have this presence in the room that's very calm, very observant, very giving, you are drawn to that kind of energy because it feels equal, B, authentic, and C, you want to catch that calm confidence, right? Yeah. So like, I think we're very drawn to that as well. And I think that what you're trying to get at in the book, and tell me if I got this right, is that for men who are reading, you want them to read and with an open mind and see what just strikes a chord with them. Like which mask you're like, ooh, that's me.
Yep.
And women who read the book should read also open-minded as a way to get a inside look or a hidden look into the men in their lives.
Yes.
That's sort of how, because for both men and women, even though it's called the Mask of Masculinity, is that right?
That's right. I mean, I was writing it for myself because I
Yeah.
needed the most work on myself. And so I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I need to figure out what's the solution to my ego, my negative energy when I'm triggered. Now, I was always a loving, fun person. But when I was triggered, it was like I didn't know how to make wise decisions.
Right.
And then I would have this residual stress for days because I gave my power away to this moment, this person, this experience.
Mm-hmm.
Person who cut me off in traffic, whatever, I would give them my power and say, I'm mad for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a weak man in my mind, is the man who gives his power away constantly to other things, ideas. And I think it was Dr. Martin Luther King who said, I don't get angry at men who hate me or this or attack me or try to kill me because I'm giving them my power when I do.
Yeah.
And I think the ultimate alpha man is not the one who's gets upset in these moments of everyone, of all these things happening around him and the people attacking him. He is calm. He is confident in himself. He has the courage and the strength to handle himself in a fight if he needs to protect himself.
Mm-hmm.
But he avoids it at all costs and uses his social skills, his energy, his kindness to diffuse situations and to not take things personally.
That's actually a good action step for everyone watching. So something that I want to now think about is, how do I give away my power? And this isn't, I don't think, a question we think about every day, but if you can sort of journal on that question, is what are the moments during the day or during the week, or who triggers you to give away your power? You either give it up with anger, as Lewis was saying, you give it up with lack of self-control, you give it up with not being yourself. What are those moments? What are those triggers where you feel like you're giving up power? And do you want to keep giving up power? Right? I think
Yeah.
that's the
That's a
ultimate.
powerful thing to think about for people.
Yeah.
And
And so,
I used to give up my power all the time, every day. When I felt triggered, for me, I've been open about, and I open about in the book, I was sexually abused when I was 5. My brother was in prison for 4.5 years. And I was always in kind of like the special needs classes in school. So I just never felt smart.
yeah.
And so anytime anyone ever physically touched me or attacked me, it was like a reaction of, I need to protect myself.
Right.
Anytime someone verbally said, like, you're dumb, Lewis, it was like I had to defend myself, right? And so if that ever happens, if it's ever happened now, like, I have to remind myself that that's a trigger and not react.
Let's dive into this, I think, really specifically. You're mentioning triggers. And I think that for people watching, it's really hard to identify our own triggers. Lewis, can you talk us through, and you talk about this in the book as well, for each of the masks, what's some exercises that someone can go through to identify their own triggers before reading or before picking up the book?
Well, I think one of the best things you can do for yourself right now, no matter who you are, man, woman, or gender nonconforming, is to get out a piece of paper and a pen or a journal and write down every moment in your life where you felt like someone attacked you, you were hurt by, you haven't forgiven the situation, you're shameful of, you feel guilty of, or embarrassed of. And just write those moments down from your first memories. That time I was sexually abused in the bathroom, that time when the kids made fun of me, that time when I was picked last on the dodgeball court, the time when this girl made fun of me and said I was ugly. Like, all these little moments that maybe we think are silly or whatever in the past, but why do we still remember them?
Yeah.
Write those down so you can just have a list and keep writing until you can't think of anything else.
Yeah.
Like, just keep writing. Like, maybe there's something last week, whatever. Just keep writing the people that you feel hurt you, the experiences that hurt you, the moments that made you from being a loving, giving person to a closed off person.
Yeah.
Just write these down so you can be aware of it yourself. I believe that until we start to share the things that we're most embarrassed about, the things that we're most scared of, the things we're most insecure of, shameful of, unless we share these things, I believe it's really hard to heal. It's hard to let them go until we start to share. And that's what I did for so many years, 25 years. I didn't tell people secrets that I had. And I just kept them boiled up in my heart. And so since I didn't share or express my feelings around it, whenever I was triggered, time after time, it would boil up, and then I would fight. I would scream. I would get mad. I would do whatever I could to express myself in different ways and unhealthy ways, because I had zero healthy ways of expressing myself. There was no hotline when I was 5 that said, if you've been sexually abused in the bathroom, call this number. We've got your back. My parents didn't know, and they didn't know how to communicate certain things or even how to create the space to have me share. And even if they did, I don't even know if I would have.
Right.
I would have been too scared probably. So as a boy growing up, becoming more of a man, we are conditioned through sports, through school, through guy
Competition.
friends,
Yeah.
competition, everything, to not express ourselves. We are conditioned, when a boy is crying and a parent says, "Stop! You better stop crying. I'm going to give you something to cry about.
Hmm.
You better stop crying. Quit crying." Like when they're constantly conditioned to not cry. In sports, don't show pain. Don't show fear. Show like you got it put together. In the locker room, if you were to talk about something that you're upset with your relationship, the first thing is, what are you, a little girl?
Right.
Constantly degrading your masculinity, calling you a little boy, a little girl, whenever you had any emotion. And so you're made fun of. And this starts to, as human beings, we want to fit in. You know this. We want to fit in. And so when your mom tells you to go into class with an open heart as a 9-year-old boy, just be giving, be loving. And then you go into the class hallways and someone's bullying a couple kids. And you say, "Hey guys, we should really be more loving and we shouldn't do this." And then they shove you in the locker. Over and over again, you start to say, well, maybe I shouldn't be open and giving if this is the result.
Right.
So let me be more of a bully so I'm accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just this conditioning that we've been trained with
So
that holds us back.
You had a section in the book which I had highlighted, and I just wanted to read it because I think it's exactly
Sure.
what you're talking about here. So as a young 21-year-old, at a very confusing moment in my life, I did what most young men do with confusing feelings. I ignored them. I stuffed them down and pretended they didn't exist. I put them in a box because that's what you're supposed to do if you're a man. Feeling this stuff was just part of life, and I was weak if I dwelled on it too much.
Mm-hmm.
So this brings up a very important scientific idea, and this looks at secrets. So I'm also fascinated by secrets, and we know that secrets, they fester. So unlike ignored things in the back of the attic, we like to think of our secrets like we put them in a box that goes in the attic and it just sits. Actually, no. Secrets are quite active agents. They are not just like props. When you put them away, they grow and they grow and they grow, and they tend to creep like mold. If you ignore mold for too long, it just slowly begins to creep into other bedrooms and other rooms in the house.
Really?
Yeah. So it was once in the attic is now this secret that is affecting your love life, is affecting your work life. And so I think, and you didn't explicitly say this in the book, but every single chapter is getting people closer to how have you tied your history with your self-worth? And now we're wrapping up with what we talked about at the beginning, which is how is your self-worth tied into some of these masks? What are the secrets that you have or the moments in your life that are holding you back? What have those triggers been? And how can you begin to drop the mask, right? How can you begin to either be more authentic or be more vulnerable? And who is safe to share those things with? So I want to end on one last question, which is, if people are thinking about dropping their own mask, what or who is the safest way that they can do that? What's the safest place they can step into? Maybe a baby step or the very first step that they could do next?
I think you got to find someone you can trust. And here's the challenge. Most men feel like they don't have a guy friend they can talk to.
Right.
And so they don't feel like they have one guy friend that they could share something with.
Mm.
And as women in general, you're sharing things all the time with each other. You're forming groups, you're finding each other in the hallways, and you're chatting about like my insecurities. Here's what I'm going through. And so it's like you're naturally getting things out.
Yeah.
So you got to figure out, it's the hardest thing to do for me as a man was to open up about the things I'm afraid of and scared of. It's near impossible feeling. It feels like you're going to die.
Yeah.
And you feel like there's no way I want anyone to know this about me. So there's not many men who are going to be like, okay, I'm going to go do this.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're thinking about it, I recommend finding someone maybe you don't know first. Someone who has to have a confidentiality. It could be a therapist, a coach, or something where they literally either say it's confidential or they sign a contract where you can share anything you want without judgment, without fear of them looking at you bad or making you wrong, and just being able to share. This is why a lot of people go to the church and they confess, right? Because they feel like it's a safe space, right? Or find a really close friend of yours that you feel like is just loving and vulnerable and non-judgmental in general, and make a request. Say, "Hi, Vanessa, I appreciate how loving and giving you are to so many people. And I'd love to have a conversation with you. Something's been upsetting me that no one really knows about me. And my request is that I can share it with you and you're open to just listening and not saying a thing at all. And now, do you honor my request and asking in a way that you feel like they listen to you, they hear you, and they respect your request? That for me is powerful, is finding at least one person you can share with and see how that feels. And then start sharing with more people if you feel like you need to. And if not, then at least you started there.
Okay, so we learned some amazing things today, and there is so much gold here. First is to do the trigger exercise that Lewis walked us through. Think about every moment that you've had in the past where you were attacked or belittled, and keep going, keep purging it, right? Like just purging those secrets, even for you, even if you don't share those right away.
Exactly.
Incredibly powerful. Second, we talked about how is your self-worth being tied into one of these masks. So I highly recommend getting this either as a couple or with a friend. So buying a book for either your partner or buying a book for your friends so you can actually read it together and then discuss each and every mask. So what I did is I went through each mask and I actually thought about, A, would this feel like me? Or B, did this feel like someone in my life? I will tell you, for women, it is an amazing way to get a different view into the men in your life. And for men who I've talked to who have read it, they've also found that there was different things that surprised them about what resonated with them. So I would highly recommend reading this with someone else or buying the book for someone else, and then going through each and every mask and seeing what resonates here. Am I willing to dig a little bit deeper with maybe an anonymous third party, a new third party? It could be a partner. It could be a friend who you get permission from. If you do those three things, I think we all get closer to being able to not give up our power. And that is what I want you to think about, is I want you to keep your power. I don't want you to give it away. And so no more giving it up. Let's make sure we take off those masks. Please check out the book.
Take it off.
Yes. I am so excited to talk to you, Lewis. Thanks so much for joining me today. And I'm sure I'll see you again soon.
Appreciate you.